Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are not just talking about a sporting event, we're unpacking a cultural phenomenon, a microcosm of human drama, and I think quite possibly the greatest reality show that ever aired on television.
That's not an exaggeration.
We're talking about the 2005 Ashes series, and we have a massive stack of sources to get through today. Match reports, autobiographies from the players, technical analyses of the bowling that changed the game, and all these retrospective essays.
It's the series that defined a generation of cricket fans. And honestly, even if you don't know your silly mid-off from your deep backward square leg, this story has everything. It has hubris, redemption, tactical warfare, and tension so thick you could cut it with a stump.
Exactly. Our mission today is to figure out exactly how England managed to dismantle one of the greatest sports teams in history. We're going to look at the tactical innovations, specifically the dark art of reverse swing, the psychological shifts, and those moments, those individual flashes of brilliance that turned the summer of 2005 into a legend.
But you can't. You just can't appreciate what happened unless you understand the landscape before a single ball was even bowled.
Right, because this wasn't just two teams playing cricket. This was David versus a Goliath that had been, working out for 16 years straight?
That is a very fair assessment. You have to look at the context. Australia had held the Ashes since 1989.
16 years.
8 consecutive series victories. And they weren't just winning, they were crushing souls. They were ranked #1 in the world by a significant margin. I was looking at the stats. They'd won 14 of their previous 18 tests leading into this series.
Wow.
They just had this aura of invincibility. It's genuinely hard to overstate just how psychologically damaged English cricket was when it came to the Australians.
Right, because for an entire generation of English fans and players, they had never seen England win the urn.
Right.
It was almost like a Pavlovian response. You see a baggy green cap, you just expect defeat.
Precisely. And England had spent the 1990s in a slump, to put it politely. I mean, they'd dropped as low as 6th in the world rankings at one point.
Which was probably generous.
Probably. By 2005, under the captaincy of Michael Vaughan, they had clawed their way back to 2nd in the world, which is a significant achievement in itself. But there was still this massive psychological gap. Being #2 is great, but when #1 is one of the greatest teams in the history of the sport, I mean, you're talking Warne, McGrath, Ponting, Gilchrist, the gap feels like a canyon.
And the Australians knew it. They weren't exactly shy about their dominance, were they? I was reading the pre-series press, and Glenn McGrath, the legendary Australian fast bowler, wasn't exactly modest in his prediction.
Oh, classic McGrath. He didn't just predict a win, he predicted a 5-0 whitewash, a clean sweep.
5-0.
And the terrifying thing was, based on history, that wasn't just trash talk. It was a statistically probable outcome. He'd predicted clean sweeps before and delivered. It was part of the psychological warfare, tell them they have no chance before they even walk onto the field.
Okay, so let's jump into the prelude then, because before the test matches even started, there was a bit of a shift in the air, right? This wasn't the timid England of the 90s. They played a T20 match at the Rose Bowl and some one-day internationals and some, I don't know, it just clicked.
That T20 at the Rose Bowl was actually quite significant. It was, I think, the first time England realized, wait a minute, if we go hard at them, they bleed. You had batsmen like Marcus Trescothick and Andrew Strauss playing so aggressively, just refusing to be intimidated.
It was a statement.
It was a refusal to be bullied, which had been the standard script for the previous decade. And England won that T20 comprehensively by 100 runs. It was a proper slap in the face for the tourists.
It was almost like they decided to punch the bully in the nose on the first day of school. But then, then came the first test at Lord's, and reality hit hard.
It was a brutal, brutal reality check. All that optimism from the one-day games just evaporated over 4 days. Australia won, and they won comfortably. By 239 runs, it looked like the same old story. The brilliance of that Australian machine just ground England down.
But looking back at the sources, there were flashes of what was to come, weren't there? Even in that loss, England did show some teeth.
They did. Yeah, the most notable moment came from Steve Harmison, England's big, tall, fast bowler. He came out firing in that first innings. He hit Justin Langer on the elbow, causing real pain, and then he hit Ricky Ponting. The captain, square on the cheek with a fierce bouncer.
That image of Ponting with his cheek cut open with the blood, it was just visceral.
It was. And look, obviously you don't want to see players injured, but in the context of Ashes cricket, which is essentially stylized warfare, this was a statement of intent. Harmison was saying, we might lose, but we're going to hurt you. You aren't going to be comfortable. It rattled the Australians, even if they went on to win the game.
And yet, despite that aggression, The Australian juggernaut just rolled over them. I mean, Glenn McGrath was practically unplayable at Lord's.
McGrath was surgical. He took 5 wickets for just 2 runs in one spell that completely dismantled England's first innings.
5 for 2.
Think about that, 5 wickets for 2 runs. It's absurd figures. England were bowled out for 190. He also took his 500th Test wicket in that match, dismissing Marcus Trescothick. It was just a masterclass in line and length, landing the ball on a dime every single time, just nibbling it off the seam.
The aftermath in the press was brutal. Vaughan, again losers. The headlines were writing themselves. It felt like the psychological blow of losing after feeling so prepared might just break the team. I mean, how do you come back from that when you thought you were ready?
Well, this is where we see the first crucial turning point in leadership. Michael Vaughan, the England captain, did something absolutely vital. In the changing room after the defeat, he gathered the team. He didn't rant, he didn't rave.
No hairdryer treatment.
None of that.
Yeah.
He essentially said, this is gone. It doesn't get spoken about again. We start again at Edgbaston. He just refused to let the ghosts of Lords haunt them. He acknowledged they played poorly, but he framed it as a blip, not a trend.
Which brings us to Edgbaston. Segment 2, the turning point. And honestly, if you wrote this as a movie script, people would say it was too contrived.
They would.
It starts with what has been called the worst decision ever.
The toss. It's iconic for all the wrong reasons for Australia.
Yeah.
Ricky Ponting won the toss. The conditions were overcast, yes, and there had been some rain about. Conventional wisdom says maybe you bowl. But the pitch looked good for batting.
And he chose to bowl.
He chose to bowl first.
Yeah.
Now, Shane Warne, his own teammate, later called this the worst decision ever made by any captain. You generally want to bat first in a test match. You want to put runs on the board and apply that pressure.
But then just pure chaos strikes before play even starts. It's, 9:45 a.m. warm-ups. Is this the most bizarre injury in cricket history?
It has to be up there. The freak accident that changed history. Glenn McGrath, the man who had just destroyed England at Lord's, the man who predicted 5-0.
The metronome.
The metronome steps on a stray cricket ball during a game of touch rugby in the warm-ups. He tears his ankle ligaments. He is out. Just like that, Australia's main weapon is disarmed before the battle even begins.
I read that Andrew Flintoff was cheering in the back when he heard the news.
Well, you can understand the relief, can't you? It was a massive psychological lift. You take the best bowler in the world out of the equation, and suddenly that Australian attack looks mortal. Brett Lee is fast, sure, but he can be expensive. Jason Gillespie was struggling for form. Without McGrath to hold up one end, the pressure release valve was just wide open.
And England pounced.
They didn't just pounce, they exploded. They scored 407 runs in a single day.
407.
That hadn't happened against Australia since 1938. It was just an onslaught.
It was baseball before baseball was a thing.
It really was. Marcus Trescothick smashed 90 runs off just 102 balls. They were signaling that they would not be bullied. Without McGrath to suffocate the run rate, England just went on the attack. They were hitting boundaries for fun, and the crowd at Edgbaston is known for being raucous. And they were fueling this aggression. It was a complete cauldron of noise.
And then we get to what everyone calls the over of the series.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe the best over Andrew Flintoff ever bowled. England are bowling, Australia are under pressure, and Flintoff has the ball against Ricky Ponting.
This is the stuff of legend. Flintoff was bowling with serious pace, over 90 miles per hour. He had the crowd just roaring, a proper Coliseum atmosphere.
Right.
He beats Ponting outside off stump. Then he gets a massive LBW shout turned down. It looked incredibly close. Then he bowls a no ball, which gives him an extra delivery in the over.
Which turned out to be very bad luck for Ponting.
Terrible luck. The extra ball was a leg cutter, a ball that moves off the seam away from the right-hander, and it just nipped away at pace. Ponting edges it, and he's caught behind by the wicketkeeper Geraint Jones.
And the celebration. Flintoff standing there, arms wide, strutting like a peacock. It was just iconic.
It shifted the power dynamic completely. It showed that England could dominate Australia's best player. Ponting was the best batsman in the world, and Flintoff just made him look vulnerable. It electrified the entire stadium.
But this is Australia we're talking about. They don't go quietly. We get to the climax of the match. Australia is chasing 282 to win in the 4th innings. They lose wickets. They look dead and buried at 175 for 8 wickets. But Shane Warne, Brett Lee, and Michael Kasperovich somehow drag them to the absolute brink.
The tension was unbearable. I mean, literally sickening for the fans. People were hiding behind their sofas. They couldn't watch.
I remember that feeling.
Shane Warne put up a great fight, but he trod on his own stumps, a hit-wicket dismissal,
Yeah.
which is just a rare and tragic way to go. That left Brett Lee and Michael Kasrovich, the last two batsmen. They needed more than 60 runs.
An impossible task.
It should have been, and they kept getting them, run by run, agonizingly.
Then there was the drop.
The drop. Simon Jones dropped a catch at third man off Kasparovich when Australia still needed 15 runs to win. Jones said later he thought he'd drop the Ashes right there and then. The ball just popped out of his hands. You could hear the collective groan of the nation.
Imagine the pressure on that poor guy. But they keep chipping away. They get it down to 3 runs needed. 2 to tie.
2 runs needed, 1 hit away from victory, a boundary wins it, a single ties it.
And Steve Harmison has the ball.
And then Harmison bowls a bouncer down the leg side. Not a great ball, truth be told. Kasparovich tries to fend it away and brushes his glove. Geraint Jones, the wicketkeeper, dives low to his left and takes the catch.
And that's it.
England win by 2 runs.
Yeah.
The narrowest margin in Ashes history. The eruption of noise was like a sonic boom.
But there's a controversy there, isn't there? We have to mention the technicality.
Oh, a massive controversy. Replays showed that Kasparovich's hand was actually off the bat handle when the ball struck his glove.
So not out.
Technically, under the laws of cricket at the time, if the hand isn't holding the bat, it's not part of the bat, so he shouldn't have been out. Should have been a wide or maybe leg bys. But without DRS technology, the review system we have now, the umpire, Billy Bowden, gave it out immediately, and the game was over. History written in a split-second decision.
And amidst that chaos, that absolute bedlam of celebration, we get one of the most enduring images of sportsmanship. Instead of running to the crowd or piling on top of his teammates immediately, Andrew Flintoff goes straight to Brett Lee.
Yes, Brett Lee was crouched on the pitch, just devastated. He had fought so hard, he had blocked 90 million thunderbolts, taken blows to the body. Flintoff goes over, puts a hand on his shoulder, and consoles him. It was a beautiful moment.
It really was.
It showed that despite the ferocious competition, the bouncers, the sledging, there was this immense mutual respect. It set the tone for the spirit of the series. Hard cricket, but fair cricket.
So it's 1-1. Game on. The series is well and truly alive. But let's just pause the narrative for a second and talk tactics. Because throughout this series, the commentators kept talking about England's secret weapon, reverse swing.
Right.
This term gets thrown around a lot, but for the listener who isn't a physics major or a cricket pro, what actually is it, and why was it so decisive?
This is the technical heart of the series. To understand reverse swing, you first need to understand conventional swing. When a cricket ball is new, it has that prominent seam. Bowlers will keep one side shiny and let the other side get a bit rougher naturally.
By polishing it on their trousers.
Exactly. And as the ball travels through the air moves faster over the smooth, shiny side than the rough side. This pressure difference makes the ball curve or swing towards the rough side. That's normal aerodynamics.
Okay, so conventional swing goes toward the rough side. What about reverse?
Reverse swing happens when the ball gets old, say 40 or 50 overs old. If the fielding team manages the ball carefully, keeping one side incredibly shiny and dry, often using sweat and saliva rigorously, while letting the other side get absolutely scuffed and cratered, the aerodynamics flip.
They slip.
The airflow becomes turbulent on the rough side earlier, and the ball actually swings towards the shiny side. It's counterintuitive.
And why is that so much deadlier compared to normal swing?
2 main reasons.
First,
It swings very, very late in its flight. Conventional swing kind of curves out of the hand so a good batsman can see it coming and adjust. Reverse swing looks dead straight until the very end of the trajectory. Then it just dips or swerves violently.
and the second reason.
The speed. You can reverse swing the ball at 90 miles per hour. Conventional swing usually disappears at those speeds because the air doesn't have time to create the pressure differential. Reverse swing thrives on pace.
And Simon Jones, the Welsh bowler for England, was the absolute master of this.
He was the key. Jones had learned this art in India and at the academy with Troy Cooley, England's bowling coach. The crucial thing was that the Australian batsmen weren't used to it. They play on hard, bouncy pitches in Australia, where the ball comes onto the bat nicely and doesn't scuff up as much.
Oh, their technique wasn't suited to it.
Exactly. They tend to stand still and hit through the line of the ball. They trust the bounce and the line from the hand.
So why is that a problem against reverse swing?
Because reverse swing dips late, it tails in towards your toes at the very last second. If your feet are planted, you can't adjust. You get trapped in LBW leg before wicket or bowled through the gate. It's the difference between tracking a big curveball that breaks early versus a slider that just drops off the table right as you swing.
I see.
The Australians were playing the line they saw out of the hand, but by the time the ball arrived, it had moved 6 inches. It was a nightmare for them.
And England combined this mastery of physics with a specific strategy for Ricky Ponting, the Duncan Fletcher plan.
Yes. Duncan Fletcher, the England coach, was obsessive about analysis. He was a real pioneer in using video technology. He and his team realized Ponting was vulnerable to LBW early in his innings because he has a tendency to plant his front foot across the stumps.
A big stride forward.
A big stride. So the plan was to bowl a specific length to force him to plant that leg and then move the ball away from him to find the edge or bring it back in sharply to hit the pad. It was forensic levels of planning, and it worked again and again. They targeted the captain to cut off the head of the snake.
So, armed with this reverse swing mastery, we head to the third test at Old Trafford. The series is leveled. The tension is just ramping up.
The atmosphere is fever pitch now. And Old Trafford in Manchester is known for being a bit of a grinder, often a spinning wicket. This is segment 4.
And Shane Warne, again, stealing headlines. He becomes the first bowler in history to take 600 test wickets.
An absolutely incredible achievement. Warne was, at times, fighting a one-man war in this series. Every time England got on top, Warne would come on and take a crucial wicket. He was just immense.
But England were the ones pushing for the win in this match, right? Simon Jones was, again, pivotal. There's a specific dismissal of Michael Clarke that stands out.
The one with the code word?
Yes.
A great story. Jones used a slower ball, but he needed Andrew Flintoff, who was fielding, to know what was coming so he could set the field. So he shouted a code word in Welsh to Flintoff.
Which was?
Pel araf.
Pel araf. What on earth does that mean?
It literally means slow ball in Welsh. Flintoff, knowing Jones's Welsh, understood immediately. Clarke, the Australian batsman, obviously didn't speak Welsh. He was completely deceived by the change of pace and was dismissed.
That's brilliant.
It showed the sophistication and the camaraderie of that England attack. They were mixing pace, reverse swing, and these clever variations.
And they had Australia 9 wickets down on the final day. They just needed one more wicket to go 2-1 up. The crowd was baying for blood.
But Australia escaped by the skin of their teeth. Brett Lee and Glenn McGrath, that last pair again, batted out the final tough overs. It was agonizing. And Glenn surrounded the bat with fielders. Every single ball was an event. But McGrath just blocked and left and survived. They secured a draw with just 1 wicket left.
That must have been devastating for England, to get so close and then miss out.
You'd think so, but psychologically, it actually reinforced their belief. They knew they had Australia on the ropes. A draw felt like a moral victory for England and a lucky escape for Australia. I mean, the Australians were celebrating a draw that was unheard of for that team. It showed how much the dynamic had shifted.
Which sets up the 4th test at Trent Bridge. And here, the conditions changed, which, usually favors the visiting team if they adapt.
Trent Bridge in Nottingham has a lush outfield. That means the grass is thicker, so the ball doesn't get scuffed up as easily when it rolls along the ground.
So no reverse swing.
Very little. The ball stays smooth, you can't get it to reverse. So England had to rely on conventional swing moving the new ball in the air.
And Simon Jones proved he wasn't a one-trick pony.
He was magnificent. He took 5 wickets for 44 runs. He was swinging it around corners conventionally. He just ripped through the Australian top order. But this match is so bittersweet because Jones picked up that terrible injury here.
Right.
He slid to field a ball, jammed his ankle, and that was it. It ended his series and effectively his test career. He never played a test for England again due to recurring injuries. He burned so bright for 1 summer, and then he just vanished.
That is a tragedy in itself. But before he went, he helped put England in a winning position. England forced Australia to follow on, make them bat twice in a row for the first time in 17 years.
A huge statement. But even then, Australia fought back. Shane Warne took wickets in the 4th innings chase. England needed 129 to win. It should have been easy.
Should have been.
But they collapsed. They were 57 for 4. The nerves were palpable. The crowd went completely silent. You could feel the old fears creeping back in.
Enter Ashley Giles and Matthew Hoggard. Not exactly the batting heavyweights you want in a crisis.
The unsung heroes. Ashley Giles, the spinner, and Matthew Hoggard, the swing bowler. They aren't known for their batting at all. But they just stuck around. They nudged and blocked and deflated the Australians. They just crept over the line. England won by 3 wickets.
Incredible.
And suddenly, the score is 2-1 to England.
This is huge because it meant England couldn't lose the series. But, and this is a big but, If they drew the series 2-2, Australia would retain the Ashes because they were the current holders.
Exactly. The rule is you have to win the series to take the urn. A draw leaves it with the holder. So going into the final match at the Oval, England needed a draw or a win. Australia absolutely had to win to keep the Ashes. The pressure was entirely on Australia to force a result.
Segment 5. The finale at the Oval. The stakes could not be higher. The entire country had ground to a halt. People were taking days off work. Pubs were full at 11 adder.
It was fever pitch. But we have to talk about Shane Warne again here. Because if this series was a movie, he's the antagonist you just can't help but admire. His stats for this series were just mind-boggling. 40 wickets. That is a record for a 5-match series. And he scored 249 runs with the bat.
And he was doing all this while his personal life was being splashed all over the tabloids. He was going through a very high-profile divorce. Paparazzi were everywhere.
He described it as living in a rarefied bubble. The duality of Warne is fascinating. He was the pantomime villain for the English crowd. They sang songs about his weight, his hair, his personal life, yet he fed off it. He was performing these heroics that demanded respect. He never, ever gave up. Even when the cause was lost, he was appealing for wickets on the last ball. He was dragging Australia forward by sheer force of will.
So final day, the final test, the Oval. The weather is a bit gloomy. England are effectively 67 for 3 in their second innings, leading by only 73 runs. If they collapse here, Australia wins the game and keeps the Ashes.
And Glenn McGrath is back. He's removing key batsmen like Michael Vaughan and Ian Bell. It is so tense. It is looking like a classic English choke might be on the cards. The silence at the Oval was heavy. You could just feel the fear.
And then Kevin Peterson walks out. This is his first Ashes series. He has that skunk stripe hairstyle. He looks brash, confident.
This is the defining innings of his career. He scores 158 runs. But it wasn't a chanceless knock. And this is the sliding doors moment of the entire match. He was dropped by Shane Warne at slip when he was on just 15.
15. That is a massive what-if moment. The best catcher in the world drops a sitter.
It was a regulation catch. A dolly. If Warne catches that, Peterson's gone. England are 4 wickets down with a tiny lead, and Australia probably rampages through the rest of the batting order. But he drops it.
And Peterson made him pay.
He did. But first he had to survive a ferocious spell from Brett Lee. 90 miles an hour plus. He was getting hit on the ribs, the gloves. It was physically dangerous. Lee was trying to knock his head off.
And instead of going into a shell, Peterson decided to attack.
He decided that instinct was his best defense.
Yeah.
He thought, well, if I'm going to go down, I'm going down swinging. He started hooking Brett Lee, arguably the fastest bowler in the world at that time, for sixes. Not just pulling, but hooking off his eyebrows into the crowd. It was breathtakingly arrogant and absolutely brilliant. He hit 15 fours and 7 sixes in that innings.
He just took the game away from Australia. By the time he was finally out, the lead was substantial and time was running out for them.
Exactly. He batted Australia completely out of the game. The match was eventually drawn due to bad light and time, but the draw was all England needed. The umpires pulled the stumps, England 2, Australia 1. The Ashes were regained after 16 long years.
Which brings us to the legacy. Segment 6. The scenes in London the next day were just insane.
We hadn't seen anything like it for cricket in this country. Tens of thousands of people packed Trafalgar Square for the open-top bus parade. The players were clearly enjoying themselves.
That's a very polite way of putting it. They looked like they hadn't slept in 24 hours. Flintoff looked like he might fall off the bus.
They definitely hadn't slept. But the stats back up the celebration. Andrew Flintoff, 402 runs and 24 wickets. He was the man of the series for England. He was the talisman.
The beating heart of the team.
And then you had Shane Warne with his 40 wickets. Kevin Peterson, top run scorer for the series with 473 runs. These were just Titan-level performances across the board.
It really felt like the end of an era for that Australian team, didn't it?
It was the beginning of the end for their golden generation. You had legends like Justin Langer, Matthew Hayden, Damian Martin, Warne, McGrath, Gilchrist. They would all retire over the next 18 months or so, specifically after the 2006-2007 series where they got their revenge, by the way.
A brutal 5-0 revenge.
But this series broke the aura of invincibility. It proved that the Australian machine could be stopped if you were brave enough and, well, good enough.
And looking back, the what-ifs are just fascinating to speculate on.
The biggest one is undoubtedly the ball at Edgbaston. If Glenn McGrath doesn't step on that cricket ball in the warm-up, does Australia win that test?
Almost certainly.
Probably. He was in the form of his life. And if they go 2-0 up, the series is likely over. England's heads would have dropped for good.
And the drop at the Oval.
If Warne holds on to Peterson at 15, Australia might well have chased down a small total and retained the urn. The margins were that fine. A twisted ankle and a dropped catch changed the course of cricket history. It shows how fragile sporting destiny really is.
It's incredible to think about. A series defined by 2 runs at Edgbaston, 3 wickets at Trent Bridge, and a 1-wicket draw at Old Trafford.
It was the clash of styles that made it so compelling. Australia was this machine-like, dominant, force-efficient, brutal, consistent. England was chaotic, aggressive, sometimes brilliant, sometimes fragile. It was chaos versus order, and for once, chaos won.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the 2005 Ashes, I want to leave you with a thought. We talk about England winning, and rightly so, they broke the curse. But here's something to chew on.
Fine.
The player of the series, in many people's eyes, and certainly statistically, was on the losing side. Shane Warne took 40 wickets in a 5-match series. That is unheard of in the modern game. He also scored nearly 250 runs.
It raises a fascinating question about the nature of team sports, doesn't it? Can you be the best individual performer by a country mile, and yet your individual brilliance isn't enough to stop a collective wave of momentum? Warren was a titan that summer, but even titans can fall. It reminds us that cricket, for all its individual battles, is ultimately won by the unit.
A tragedy for Warne, a triumph for England. If you haven't seen the footage, go look up the highlights of the Edgbaston finish or Peterson's innings at the Oval. It is sporting theater at its absolute peak.
It really is. It doesn't get any better than that.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.